Hi everyone, this is Melissa Skidmore. This is my presentation for adolescent anxiety and depression health concerns. Um, for the description of anxiety, anxiety presents as being, it could be separation anxiety, kids from parents, it could be terrified about specific things like dogs or objects or going somewhere. It could be frightened at school. It could be nervous about upcoming events or bad things occurring. Um, it could be, and anxiety onsets are usually sudden and acute, and they are disabling. They're penetrating. They are usually exhibit as heart palpitations or difficulty breathing, feeling lightheaded, unsteady, or sweaty. The next slide I have is a description of depression. Depression can present as feeling unhappy, hopeless, they're ill-tempered. Most of the time, they're not really fun to deal with. They don't need or want to go anywhere or do any fun things. They can have fluctuations in their diet, so they can either compensate by eating a lot or they might not eat as much. Their sleep is usually changed. They'll either want to sleep all the time and they're in bed and you can't get them up and arouse them, or they are very restless and they're up at night and not sleeping the way that they should have normal sleeping patterns. Appearances of depression could be feeling fatigued, lethargic. They could have tendencies of being edgy, agitated at times. They don't pay attention very well. They have a feeling of insignificancy. They feel inadequate. They could have a lot of guilt attached to the things that they're doing, and they could eventually do self-injury or self-destructive behavior such as cutting. The next slide I have is about the statistics of who anxiety and depression affect. So locally, I live in Morgan County, and locally with Weber and Morgan counties, I was able to find that 23.2% of adults age 18 and older in the time period of 2015 to 2017 were reported with a depressive disorder. This is mean that they had gone in and actually reported it. So I'm sure it could be more than that. It was for adults. I could not find statistics for adolescents, but that is what I found for locally. The statewide percentages in 2017 is 33% of high school students had depression symptoms. So I found that for statewide. Did not find anxiety for statewide. Nationally, I found that I did get some anxiety statistics that 7.1% of children ages 3 to 17 years of age were diagnosed with anxiety, and 3.2% of children ages 3 to 17 years have diagnosed depression. So that's diagnosed, that's just not the ones that maybe have failed or haven't gone and talked to anyone. So, and worldwide, 300 million people are affected by depression. So my statistics aren't always comparable to each other, but I did find statistics for anxiety and depression, just not both on each level. Going on to contributing factors, social determinants that I was able to find out for anxiety and depression were race and ethnicity. Certain races don't go to the doctor. They don't believe that yearly checkups are useful. They don't go unless something's very, very bad or dire. And so they have a different opinion possibly about healthcare than some other people do. And they have different health-related behaviors. So another determinant would be socioeconomic status. 16% of families in the United States are living in poverty, and 36% of families with adolescent youth are living in a low-income situation. So obviously this is going to increase the statistics and the chances of anxiety, depression in these households where they are wanting and needing for things, and that they don't have enough money to sustain life. And rural and urban, suburban areas, Adolescents living in those situations might be too far away from health activities or available health amenities, so that could affect the healthcare and be a social determinant. The next slide I have is contributing factors for anxiety specifically. Trauma could cause anxiety in someone's life, stress due to an illness, buildup of stress, whether work or school. Some personalities have a tendency to be anxious or have anxiety, and there's other mental disorders such as depression that causes us to have anxiety also. Having blood relatives with anxiety disorder can be a contributing factor, and obviously drugs and alcohol could add to that. The next slide is contributing factors or specific concerns dealing with depression. Biochemistry or differences in our chemicals in our brain can cause depression. That predisposition to genetics it can run in families, and that could cause depression. For a specific concern, personalities, individuals with low self-esteem, those who are easily overwhelmed or stressed, those who are generally pessimistic or appear to be, more likely to experience depression. And environmental factors, continuously being exposed to violence, neglect, abuse, or poverty can make some people more vulnerable to depression. Root causes in adolescent anxiety and depression is kind of a summary of the last two slides that I created. It's hard to put a specific cause or situation that causes anxiety. I think it's a accumulation of a lot of them. Causes could be stress in school for adolescents. It could be stress with friends, social trauma, complications at home, drug or alcohol use, or that genetic predisposition, along with social media, can add to those root causes. Depression, very similar. There's not a specific root cause. There's many contributing factors, including anxiety could be a source of depression. Medical illness could induce depression in adolescents, along with life changes, inherent tendencies, stress in school, social media, friends, increased exposure in violence, neglect, abuse, and poverty can all add to that. Contributing factors with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Met needs are going to be mostly physiological. Most things are usually kids are able to have food, water, sleep, health, all of those things are usually met needs. But unmet needs obviously would be safety. That could cause anxiety and depression. And then going on, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization are unmet needs concerning anxiety and depression. Anticipated function level with these two situations, or depending on how severe it is, the anxiety and depression in the adolescent could make them be okay, or they could really have a hard time functioning in society, depending on the severeness of what they're dealing with. And outcomes also have to do with that functional level. If they're severe, sluggishness in mental and motor responses, brief answers, they could have an intense feeling of being tired, disinterested, deep sadness, and have a dissatisfaction with oneself. Specific concerns with communicable diseases, there's not many that I could find with depression and anxiety. However, if the anxiety and depression causes other issues, could with substance abuse, unsafe sexual activities, tobacco use, increased consumption of alcohol, or many other unsafe behaviors, that could inadvertently cause them health issues that they would deal with. Non-communicable diseases that they would deal with anxiety and depression: substance abuse, body image disturbance, post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, learning disorders, and any other mental illnesses could be a non-communicable disease that those dealing with anxiety and depression are going to face. Self-care for anxiety and depression, a healthy eating plan. To institute one of those would help a lot with anxiety and depression. Getting 60 minutes of exercise every day, getting enough sleep will all add to self-care and make that a little better for them. If they can practice some mindfulness and relaxation techniques, that would also be helpful for anxiety and depression. Self-harm with anxiety and depression, driving recklessly, binge drinking, taking too many drugs, unsafe sex, cutting, and suicide are all results of that. And the last thing is risk to harm by others. So noticing those apparent cuts, bruises, or cigarette burns, usually on the wrists, arms, or thighs and chest. Not exposing themselves even when it's hot outside, always wearing long sleeves, trying to hide what they might have done. Appearance of low mood, tearfulness, lack of motivation, self-disgust, conveying a wish to penalize themselves are all a risk for harm to them and others. Not wanting to go on and desiring to end it all, or possible suicide, becoming very reserved and not talking to others, precursors with a low self-esteem, such as blaming themselves for any others they could be undergoing or thinking that they're not good enough for something, and indications that they're pulling out their hair can also be a problem. And this is my presentation with the references. Thank you so much.